Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's James here with Crypto Common Sense, aka Three Peaks Trading. I have a fast video today. It's going to be a little bit different from a normal trading video. I just wanted to drop this because I think it's really critical that people understand this, especially for those of you who are maybe still a little bit on the younger side. So I saw this video. I was getting ready to leave about an hour ago. I had to run some errands. I saw this real quick. I was procrastinating and, caught a couple of Facebook reels. I really like this guy, Jimmy Darts. You don't know who Jimmy Darts is, definitely you should check him out. He's, doing a lot of really nice things in life, spreading a lot of positivity. But this video in particular kind of stuck out to me. This lady seemed like a super nice lady. I'm in no way picking her at all. Okay. Essentially, he was going through the store and asking people to help him buy a pair of shoes. She offered him some money, even though she was struggling. She offered to give him some money, and so he rewarded her with $500. I love the story. But if you look at the headline, it's hard being 60 and being on a fixed income. We see this a lot, right? People in general, I'm not picking on this lady. I don't know her situation. She may have a completely legitimate reason for where she's at. So I don't want to focus in on her. I want to focus in on the narrative, okay? We see this all the time. People in general have these knee-jerk reactions or these knee-jerk excuses. We see things like, it's tough living on a fixed income. It's tough, being elderly and on a fixed income. It's tough when you're on Social Security, like all these things. And I'm not saying it's not tough. I believe it's tough. My mom actually lived on disability. My parents were divorced, and my mom got a disability check for $650 a month. It's called SSI. She didn't even get Social Security or like a normal disability. She got SSI, which is basically she didn't earn enough credits to get disability. So she got this supplemental income for $650 a month, which of course was not enough to live on. So she was always struggling. At any time somebody tried to help her out, like even though my parents were divorced, I remember when I was a kid, my dad tried to give her some money to help her out, and the government found out and actually took it back. Like they took money out of her check because she wasn't allowed to have outside help. So like when I was in my late teens and early 20s, like I paid some of her bills for, I did it on the down low, like paid her phone bill and a few things, bought her some necessities and things like that. Because she couldn't make it. So I'm not knocking anybody. I understand how tough that is. But in the case of people who, work their whole lives, like this particular woman in the video, like she said she's a nurse. She was a nurse for 31 years. Her husband also worked. He was in the federal security sector. And so I've got to imagine they made a pretty decent living. Again, I'm not picking on them. I don't know their specific situation. But people, especially younger people, right? Worse with younger people than older people. They're not putting anything back. They're living this YOLO lifestyle. And, there's no guarantee that Social Security is going to be there when we retire. If you're in the U.S., Social Security, of course, is this thing you're supposed to get when you're 60. It used to be 62, I think. Now they changed to like 67. If you've lived that long in other countries, I'm sure you have some kind of social safety net as well. But the reality is retiring a millionaire is actually a very feasible, it's very feasible for most people. It's just most people, they have what's called lifestyle creep. The more money they make, the more they expand their lifestyle. They buy a nicer home, they buy nicer cars, they spend more on gifts, they spend more going out to eat and entertainment, et cetera, et cetera. But if you will just do one thing, you can change your life. And if you have children, if you will ingrain this in them early on, you can change their lives as well. If you will live on 80% of your income instead of 100%, like if you, invest 20% of every pre-tax dollar you make, then by the time you retire, it's almost a guarantee that you'll be a millionaire if you start early enough. So let me show you an example of this. I've talked about this in the past, but let's say that somebody starts investing at 18 years old and they start investing just $250 a month, okay? And they never increase the investment. They just invest $250 a month throughout their entire career. Let's say they want to retire at 62, right? 67, like I said, is Social Security retirement age now. But let's say they want to retire at 62, which is still pretty young. Like you've still got a lot of life left at 62 for most people, as long as you're healthy, okay? So you're talking about essentially 44 years from 18 to 62. So 44 years. And the average rate of return on the market is around 9 to 10%. We're going to go low end and say 9%. Okay. And let's just say that that's compounded on an annual level. We calculate in 44 years that $250 a month will be worth roughly $1.4 million. And again, that's assuming a static investment at 250. That's not really what you would do. You would, maybe start at 250, but as you make more and more money, that will go up. If you get to the point where maybe you're at 30 years old, you're making, $60,000 a year, then of course you wouldn't be investing $250 a month. You'd be investing $1,000 a month. Or if you get to the point where you're making $100,000 a year, then you would be investing $20,000 a year, so on and so forth. And if you do that, and you don't have to be an investment whiz or anything, this is just the average rate of return in the market, you stand to retire a multi-millionaire. So I wanted to do this fast video. Again, I'm not in any way, shape, or form judging or picking on the woman in the video. She seems very nice. Again, she was talking about struggling, but still willing to give somebody else a helping hand. So kudos to her. But just really don't allow your lifestyle creep to ruin your life. Don't allow that to happen. The reality is this, of course, it's nice to have nice things, but speaking from experience, it's much nicer to have real freedom. Most people don't have real freedom in life. Most people have to do something, whether they want to or not. They have to work a certain job. They have to do certain things in a business, etc. And one thing that I did in 2023 that I had never done this, in this much detail, was I kept a spreadsheet of every single dollar that I spent on bills, on non-essentials, on medical, on everything. I kept a spreadsheet of it. And then I tried to keep a rough idea of how many hours I was working each week, both, in the software stuff and also on the trading and everything. And then I figured out my hourly rate. And it came to figure out that I had to work roughly just under 5 hours a week at my average hourly earnings in order to meet all of my expenses and whatnot. So if you think about that, it's total freedom. 5 hours a week is what it takes. That's what it takes to cover my necessities and my expenses. That gives me the rest of my time to do whatever I want to do. I'm not forced to do anything. And that level of freedom, it's a direct result of not allowing lifestyle creep to kind of ruin what I have. Having the bigger house and everything. If somebody gifted me a bigger house or a nicer house for free, sure, that'd be great. If I won a lottery and won some stuff, that'd be kind of cool. But am I going to put myself in a position where I have to do things I don't want to do to have those things? Absolutely not. One of my songs I used to listen to when I was a teenager for Papa Roach, and I'm sure they stole this from somewhere, but they talked about the things you own end up owning you. I've always loved that quote because it's absolutely true. Most people are doing things in life they don't really want to do because they're buying things they don't really need or want because they're trying to impress their peers. Don't do that. Buy the stuff that actually means something to you. Spend money on, things that are going to bring you happiness and experiences, like a vacation. Maybe it's not fancy. You can't show it off to the world. Hey, we took a vacation. Other than maybe some pictures on social media. But that vacation is probably going to be way more meaningful in 20 years when you think back on that vacation to Disney World with your family and your kids than that BMW is going to be. I took my daughter to Disney World a couple of times when she was growing up, and that was way much, way cooler, way more important than any car that I ever owned or anything else. And I used to be a car guy. So, I've had probably 25 cars before I kind of grew around to that. So anyway, just some food for thought. Lifestyle creep is a very real thing. I'm not saying don't have nice things. If you're making a bunch of money, or if you're making good money and you can fit all those things into 80%, by all means, I think that's great. But I don't think you should just pinch every penny or live a scarcity lifestyle where you do without, but trying to make sure that you're putting back at least 20% of every pre-tax dollar and then live on whatever's left. And if you do that, there's a very, very good chance that you will retire a very wealthy individual. All right. This is James with Crypto Common Sense, aka 3 Beats Trading. I know this wasn't really a trading video, but it is critical to understand this. We were taught, society tells us that the rich get richer and the poor, get poor, but it's not the case. The educated get richer and the ignorant stay poor. Don't be ignorant. Educate yourself on how easy it is to actually become a multimillionaire. All right. Talk to you guys soon.